Sterling is a fucking badass because he is Jim fucking Sterling's son. Not because he is, yes, well, I've kind of got a bit of an opinion about something here, so, could you not be so mean about it while I say my opinion? No, Jim fucking Sterling's son is like, yeah, I get the monies, and I suck the dick.
Today's Gymquisition offers no great solution to a problem that's ravaging the world. It makes no grand point about the video game industry at large. It is, in essence, one random bloke who got annoyed about something last week and spun it off into a big old rant about some stuff that's just been pissing him off in general. And that's fine! It doesn't help anyone, except me, nominally. But that's fine, because I'm the only one who matters, so the fact that this episode helps me out by getting me to vent some frustration is good. It's good! Watch and enjoy. Or don't, it doesn't matter, because you're not me.
This is Jim Sterling, real name James Stanton. He's a British games journalist who used to write for The Escapist alongside contemporaries like Movie Bob and Yahtzee. After parting ways with The Escapist, he took to YouTube where he puts out an independent series called the Gymquisition. Anyway, Jim, as of October 2017, takes in about 13 grand a month from Patreon. Other facts about Jim Sterling are that he and his wife are polyamorous, and he literally has a my wife's son. Now what's that word I'm looking for? Begins with C, ends in K. It eludes me, it escapes me. And if this is your first introduction to Jim Sterling, then you may have noticed the physical resemblance to Jahans. They look like father and son, and make no mistake, Jim Sterling is Jahans' idol, his only in-real-life hero, and it's easy to see why. He earns a lot of money putting out YouTube videos, and he hasn't had to do anything pesky like lose weight or tidy his room in order to make that money. To Jahans, Jim Sterling is the epitome of success. Jahans doesn't aspire to be a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher or anything noble. He instead aspires to be Jim fucking Sterling's son.
Jim Sterling, a guy who if you like me, but what you want is someone who will use clips and sketches and script things out, you will love Jim Sterling. Because basically, Jim Sterling is me, but video games, shorter, scripted, edited. Like, if you like me, you will love Jim Sterling.
And that brings us up to speed. We're about to explore another similarity between Jim Sterling and Jahans, how they both partake in extremely degenerate things under the guise of irony. In fact, no. I scratched that. This is under the guise of it being their job, their mission to do this stuff. You'll see what I mean when you witness Jim Sterling's attitude to hardcore pornography featuring Nintendo characters.
I'm watching a man in a Luigi costume having, sex with a woman in a Yoshi costume. It's incredible. Oh, that's her asshole. As we get a rear view of his balls and penis slapping against her. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I don't know what's better. The commitment to characterization as they keep up the voices. As he thrusts, he's going Luigi, which beautiful method acting. Or the music, which seems to work in time with the action on screen. This is amazing. Oh, that's my bulldog puppy chewing on things. Stop it, you. You shouldn't be in here, you're too young for this. Yep. I am watching the internet. Wow.
I think that he enjoyed that. But did you notice how the mask of Jim Sterling's shame was there, but make no mistake? To the trained eye, the mask was slipping. Anyway, we see a similar scenario when Jahans watches Two Girls, One Cup.
I am going to watch Two Girls, One Cup. Let the horror show begin. Yes, I think that ought to make up for an eternity of exquisite pain.
Now, Jahans being Jim Sterling's biggest fanboy can go some way in the explaining of why he chose to emulate him in such a manner. And I also think that Jahans is exaggerating his responses in much the same way as Jim Sterling does. There's a feigned disgust, a fake revulsion at something perverse, which, when the camera's turned off, make no mistake, their tic-tacs are being stroked to. Now, the ironic degeneracy of Jim Sterling is something that I wish to highlight. At what point do the lines become blurred? At what point do you take a look in the mirror and say to yourself, wait a minute, I've just spent the day filming myself posing with a dragon dildo.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar stain, trying to kill it all the way. But I remember everything.
You're going to see now how Jim Sterling mines humour from the hypersexualization of just everyday things in general that he encounters, like reality TV. It's something that you see a lot in people like this. Their degeneracy, their perversions cannot help but seep through, making an everyday conversation crass and vulgar. Here, Jim Sterling pitches an idea that he has for a television programme.
I had this great idea called Fucked Into a Restaurant. People apply to the show thinking they're applying for kitchen nightmares. You know, they're millions of dollars in debt. Their restaurant's about to be closed down. They need help. So they go to Chef Ramsay, please Chef Ramsay, help us out. Gordon Ramsay turns up, is in town, he's like, right, I've been told about this restaurant, they're 10 grand down the hole. It's a shambles. I'm going to sort it out by being fucked into that restaurant. We get footage from inside the restaurant. They're going about their normal daily routine. Then suddenly, the door's kicked open. Gordon Ramsay is there, bent over, naked, pants round his ankles. Behind him is a giant fat man, looks like Uncle Phil off Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, sure.
Fucking him up the arse.
Whoa.
So hard that it just pushed Gordon Ramsay through the door violently. The Uncle Phil looking man thrusts a few more times. Just, and Gordon Ramsay's hands on his knees, just holy mackerel, fucking hell, he's almost sick. It's so intense. And then they just walk back out backwards. He's still inside him, and they just waddle back out backwards, close the door, and leave. And that's the last that restaurant sees of him.
I managed to capture a really somber moment in the Jim Sterling canon, where he considers the prospect of his own demise. Literally, he stares at the spectre of his own death, and you can see in his eyes that he's thinking he's wasted his life talking about microtransactions and collecting boglins. It's a rare moment, but note how the reviewer persona is still with Sterling, even as he considers the prospect of his own death. This is Jim Sterling's Hamlet. Alas, poor Yorick. And he treats it with the feigned irreverence with which he regards everything. His body, his career.
It is Death's mask. It is quite a solid thing, as you can see. Paint on it. I'm not sure what it's made out of. Resin, I think. Or high quality wood. So that's cool. But I wanted to show you, I want to see what it looks like with it on, because I think this is quite cool and quite slimming as well. So I think I'm going to look quite svelte, and then the ladies will want to do a sex orgasm on the end of me. So that's going to be fun. So let's just pop that on. Very exciting stuff.
The stillness as he holds the spectre of death to his face, almost in preparation for the role that he'll fulfill when he prematurely meets St. Peter at the pearly gates. In that moment, as Jim Sterling larps as his own skeleton, there is a tangible sadness for a man whose whole legacy can be summed up as being the inspiration for the continuing hedonism of one Alexander Gordon Johans.
And you are Mississippi Madman Logan Creed.
Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed. I remember your Ego on Break videos. Very enlightening.
Thank
You and Mr. Anderson, Mr. Andrews, whatever he likes to call himself. Can't be expected to remember their names, because I'm too important. But what would your first question be, Mississippi Madman Logan Creed?
Jim Sterling here resembles an eccentric lesbian. In fact, I'd argue that he doesn't even look human anymore. His fatness has turned this man into a large beach ball. A beach ball wrapped in tacky plastic clothing that doesn't hide the obesity at all, but instead draws attention to it. The interviewer is somewhat stunned by just the sheer display of Jim Sterling. We're watching two men from two completely different worlds. On the left, reality, the world of the proper day's work, and on the right, a man from a different dimension altogether, a person so out of touch with the world that he must exaggerate his social cues and responses in order to communicate.
Go a little bit in between with you, from YouTube to video games to wrestling. Does that work? Sweet. All right, well, who was your inspiration to get into YouTube first?
The almighty dollar. There's a lot of money in YouTube, a lot of money in YouTube audiences, and riling them up against businesses. Not that there's any of that going on here.